I wanted to mention a few things. There's a new documentary came out not too long ago, defending creationism, uh, called Genesis: Paradise Lost, and so I wanted to recommend that with some other things. Um, there was a book I read called "Confound the Critics" by Bodhi Hodge, and what the book is, it pretty much they take hate mail that was sent to Answers in Genesis, and Bodhi Hodge, it shows you the hate mail, and then he refutes it line by line, and presuppositionally, he uses the methodology of presuppositional apologetics, which is the most biblical way to do apologetics. So it's a great book to actually see presuppositional apologetics in action. So I would recommend Confound the Critics by uh, Bodhi Hodge. There's been a new version of Evidence That Demands a Verdict. That's a famous classic apologetic book. Recently, they came out with a new version. Sean McDowell teamed up with his dad this time, and it's from what they say, 70% new material. And so it's been updated and expanded. So I'm going through it right now. There's some good stuff in here. So I would recommend that. There was one chapter that caught my attention. Now I did a video a while back called "Defending the Bible," and in there on my YouTube channel, I gave examples of when liberal scholars attacked the Bible and they said this couldn't have happened, and then archaeological findings proved the liberal scholars who attacked the Bible wrong. And so there was one section here that talked about how we should approach Bible difficulties in page 591. And I just wanted to quote: assuming that the unexplained is not explainable, no informed person would claim to be able to fully explain all Bible difficulties. However, it is a mistake for the critic to assume, therefore, that what has not yet been explained never will be explained. When a scientist comes upon an anomaly in nature, he does not give up further scientific exploration. Rather, he uses the unexplained as a motivation to find an explanation. Likewise, the Christian scholar approaches the Bible with the same presupposition, that what is thus far unexplained is not therefore unexplainable. He or she does not assume that discrepancies are contradictions, and when he encounters something for which he has no explanation, he simply continues to do research, believing that one will eventually be found. Dr. Jason Lisle, there was a list on the internet saying that there are 420 contradictions in the Bible. Dr. Jason Lisle went through all 420, and he said there are no contradictions, and he refuted that list, and that can be found in his book called Keeping Faith in an Age of Reason. There's a teaching on YouTube. Science Confirms the Bible, and you can get it from Answers in Genesis or somewhere. It's on DVD. It's really, really good. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Science Confirms the Bible. I highly recommend this. This was great. One of the there's numerous things in there that were great, but there was one part where if anyone doesn't know Dr. Richard Dawkins. Dr. Richard Dawkins is considered to be the leader of the New Atheist movement. He's a very militant atheist, but anyway, they're interviewing him in this. They show an interview with Dawkins, and they're asking him about intelligent design. And he actually says, and there are some atheist scientists who do believe this, that because of the complexity of biology, they were talking about DNA, and if you know anything about the debate over the existence of God, the complexity of DNA is one of the biggest arguments, one of the biggest proofs, that he believes, because of the complexity of it, that it's possible that we were actually created by aliens. Yeah. So that's pretty big for Dawkins to say that, because he has this atheistic worldview presupposition starting point, and it sounds like he is not opposed to intelligent design, only certain kinds of intelligent design, specifically believing in a God. So I would highly recommend that. There is a if you go on in the New Answers book, let me just bring that up really quick. In one of the books from Answers in Genesis, it's in over here, the New Answers book, book 2, page 70 says, quote, DNA is so compact that a 1 square inch chip of DNA could encode the information in over 7 billion Bibles. That is pretty extraordinary. Just thinking about how complex DNA is. The video also talks about St. Mount Helens. When it erupted, it proved that layers can form very quickly, and if we had more water in the past, which we did, then layers could have formed a lot more quicker than what current scientists, atheist scientists, believe. It's an issue of worldviews. The atheist scientist world doesn't believe that there was a worldwide flood. So they're going to believe that layers formed over millions of years, but there are really good arguments against that in you get the New Answers books. There are Christians who try to squeeze millions of years in the Bible, which is really stretching truth. And one of the books and Answers of Genesis, they went over through some, there's Christians who try to say that the worldwide flood was local, even though the Bible is very clear that it was worldwide. And they have an agenda why they're doing that, because they want to believe in millions of years. So in one of the Answers in Genesis books, it actually goes through problems with a local flood. And some of them are, why did God tell Noah to build an ark? If the flood had been only local, Noah and his family could have just moved to higher ground or over a local mountain range or hills to avoid the floodwaters. The wicked people that the flood was intended to destroy could have escaped God's judgment in the same manner. They could have used small boats or floating debris to swim to the edge of the flooded region and survive. Why would Noah have to put birds on the ark when they could have flown over the hills to safe ground? Why would animals be required to be on the ark to keep their kinds alive on the earth, Genesis 7, verses 2 to 3, if representatives of their kind existed all over the earth outside of the alleged local flood area. Did God fail at his stated task where he said that he would destroy all land animals on the earth since the flood was local? Which it wasn't. Genesis 6:17. Why would a flood occur over the course of about a year if it were local? Why did Noah remain on the ark for about 7 months after coming to rest after a little river flood? Does a local flood really have about 5 months of rising and 5 months of falling in a river valley? Such a flood would merely carve out a deep valley and wash Noah downstream to the ocean. How could the ark have landed in the mountains of Ararat, far upstream and up in the mountains above from the alleged river valley, when all flow is going to take the ark in the opposite direction toward the Persian Gulf? The flood occurred about 1,656 years after creation. If all people outside the ark were judged and drowned in this little local river flood, Genesis 7:23, Matthew 24:39, then they were all still living in this one little region on earth. Why didn't the Lord previously confuse their languages and scatter them for disobeying his command in Genesis 1 to be fruitful and multiply, Genesis 1:28? It only took about 100 years or so after the flood for God to judge mankind for not scattering at Babel. The proposal of a local flood for Genesis chapters 6-8 simply doesn't make sense in the context. So there's some things to think about for Christians who try to push and say that the flood was local, even though that's against what the Bible teaches, just because they want to push the idea that they want to believe in millions of years and not young earth, which the Bible teaches. So that's a few things to think about. And that's going to be it for now. If anyone wants to follow me on Facebook, I'm there too.